Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's a privilege to be in conversation with my community. This is our third time reviewing the didactic poem of Imam Al-Mawlūd, Purification of the Heart. This week's chapter is on envy, right? Jealous envy. Something that all of us are familiar with in one way or another. Either we are guilty or have been guilty, and this is a very human thing, of envy and jealousy, or we have been envied, right? Someone was jealous of us. When you think about envy, what are some of your initial impressions? What are some of the first things that come to mind?
I think, peace and blessings, everybody. I think just the learning the distinction between what envy is, between envy and jealousy, was profound for me when I first read this chapter like years ago. So I think for me it just goes to understanding what envy is in the first place. I think we probably think about it as wanting something that someone else has for the wrong reasons, but it's deeper than that.
Sure.
So if you want to go into the definition, I think that's it was profound for me.
Well, envy, hasad is the word in Arabic. Envy entails wanting someone else to lose something God has favored them with. This is hasad. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that hasad eats your good deeds the same way that fire eats hatab, it eats firewood. That envy, jealousy, they have this consumptive element to them. One can be consumed by envy. One can be consumed by jealousy. Like I like to think of it as a fire that not only will burn everything around you, it will eventually burn you, right? And when you think about any blessing, right? A blessing is, in Arabic we call it a ni'mah. It's a ni'mah, it's a blessing, right? Or it's a mawhiba, it's a talent. The ni'mah comes from the mun'im. The blessing comes from the dispenser of blessing, God. The mawhiba comes from al-wahhab. The talent comes from the bestower of talents, God. So if one is angry or agitated or frustrated by anything that anyone has, you're ultimately frustrated by the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? It's only God that chose to give this person that thing. And the fact that that angers you, the real issue you have is with God's decree. Why does it anger you? Why does that make you angry? And the strangest thing about envy is that you see something and you see someone apparently or ostensibly or outwardly enjoying something, but you really don't know if that is a blessing for them or that thing might be a curse for them. That thing might be a test that they are failing. And here you are desiring it for yourself, wishing they lost it so that you could somehow, obtain it.
Right.
Right? And then the last thing that I think about, and we can explore all of these, is envy is based on a mentality of scarcity. Even, the Arabs, they differentiate between hasad and ghibta, right? Ghibta is to be desirous of something that somebody has, but I don't want them to lose it. I just wish that I had it too. That's a ghibta. And even that can be short-sighted. So I see somebody famous, I wish I was famous. Not that I want them to lose their fame, but I wish I was famous too.
Well, what's the English word for that? Whatever.
I don't really know that there's an English word for that.
Okay. Is it like envy or?
It's, I don't know. It's like there's lots of words we could put together for that, but I don't know one word. It's like to be desirous of something someone has. right? This person is popular. I wish I was popular. This person is wealthy. I wish I was wealthy. But at least that person, they don't have a mentality of scarcity. See, they don't believe that this person has to lose their fame for me to be famous.
Right.
They have to lose their wealth for me to be wealthy. They have to lose their popularity for me to be popular. No, they can keep theirs and I want it too.
Right.
Right? That's different. Envy, I want them to lose that. Right? I wish she wasn't so well liked. Why do people love her post so much?
Right.
Why are her gatherings so well attended? That's envy, right? And it's a disease of the heart, man. It's a disease of the heart. You see, you're ruminating on something, like you want to offer something.
Y'all don't want to know what I'm ruminating on. There's this post that I'll maybe mention it a little bit later.
Okay.
But I wanted to say, what's the difference between envy and jealousy?
I always thought of envy and jealousy as synonyms, personally. Unless now, is there a difference in English between envy and jealousy? I always thought of them as synonyms.
Okay.
Right. But you were talking at the onset about a difference.
I guess,
between
okay,
envy and
because even
jealousy.
within our tradition, there is an idea that it's okay to be jealous of somebody for their good deeds, and like a competition it's healthy.
Yes.
Sometimes I struggle like processing that and understanding that, but it's helpful for me to know that envy means that you want somebody to lose what they have. Like that's a clear distinction. Okay, I could
Right.
I could try to, I'll work on that, but the jealousy part, because there's a, you could speak to it that it's good. Like that's, to me, is like hard to process too.
Well, they say that the Prophet Muhammad, well, it's not they say, there's a hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ said that it is okay to envy a knowledgeable person that acts according to her knowledge. It is okay to envy a person of means that gives for the sake of God. Right? These are people, it's okay to envy them. It's not to envy them, excuse me, but it's okay to want to be like them. Right? It's okay to want, in fact, I would even expand the examples given in that statement of the Prophet ﷺ and say, it is okay to want to be like any righteous woman, like any righteous man. I wish I was like that. Right? Hasad, I wish they weren't like that. Right? It angers me that they are so-and-so, that they can do so-and-so. This is hasad, right? And this is a disease of the heart, right? This is a disease of the heart. He says, if you were to describe your desire that someone lose his or her blessing as envy, then your description will be accurate. Right? So right there, right from the beginning, Imam Al-Mawlūd, he defines envy. You want someone to lose their blessing. Right? I think what leads to a lot of envy, in my experience, is comparison. Right? Comparing ourselves to people. I once heard somebody say that the mother of all disappointment in life is comparison, right? Last night I was watching that Mr. Rogers documentary. You know what I'm saying? That joint was good too, yo. I'm not ashamed to say it, man. That Mr. Rogers documentary, Won't You Be My Neighbor? That was a good doc. But there was this black man named Francois. Jazakallah khair.
I got, yes, thank you.
Bismillah. And Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers, he said to Francois, I love you just the way you are. And Francois just started crying, you know what I'm saying? And he said, I had never heard this from my father. I had never heard this from other members of my family, and I needed to hear that. And the first thing I thought about is that when somebody says that to you, you're assured of one thing for sure. They're not comparing you to anybody else, right? Often when I am, now if I'm just being real, when I become uncomfortable thinking about like my children, it's never that I think something is inherently wrong with my children. It's when I start comparing my children to other children. He can tie his shoes. Najashi, why can't you tie your shoes? He can sit still for the duration of a 30-minute class. Why can't you? He's reading chapter books. You're not reading chapter books. You see, but when he said to Francois, I love you just the way you are, it's not to say it destroys, virtue. It means that you don't have to do anything to be loved. No, that's not, I don't read any of that into that statement. It just says, I can see you. I'm not thinking about what if you were like this person? What if you were like that person? What if you were, no. My relationship is with you and I'm fine with that. Now, of course, in the same way that I want to grow, I want to improve, I want to develop, I want people close to me to grow and improve and develop. But when I see them, I just see them. And I think like, what a blessing to be able to offer somebody that kind of companionship. And I love you just the way you are, right? But envy, I think its source is the opposite of that, right? But often we're comparing ourselves to other people, right? Look, he's married, I'm not married. He's wealthy, I'm not wealthy. His life is, and what's deep about it is most of that comparison, it ends up being false, right? And we have a tendency to exaggerate so that we think he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. His life is perfect. Right. He lives in a gated community. His family changes cars every 2 years. They take a vacation out the country every year. And we think his life is perfect. And look at my life, right? Other element of envy, ingratitude. Look at what I got. I've never gone on vacation. I'm still driving the same car that I've been driving since 2012.
Right.
I was born into hardship. There's ingratitude and usually not even an understanding of the test that the other individual has.
Yeah, my father-in-law takes from the verse, this might be a verse, so correct me, but that when you're grateful, Allah will give you more things to be grateful for. So I'm not sure if he added this part on or if this is it, but it's what I hear him say is that when you're ungrateful, Allah will give you more things to be ungrateful of.
Yes. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَلَئِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. If you give thanks for what you have, Allah will increase you in what you have. And many scholars, mashallah, Imam Ibrahim, his understanding is very scholarly. They say that this verse, you also have al-mafhum al-mukhalafa. So the Quran, just to give you a little primer, a little of tafsir, al-mafhum al-mukhalafa is like one statement is made and its opposite can also be asserted. So for instance, the classic example, and we study this in balagha or like rhetoric. The classic example, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. This is the book in which there is no doubt. It is guidance for people of God consciousness. Al-mafhum al-mukhalafa, the opposite implied understanding, the Quran is not guidance for people who are not God conscious. You see, it's not guidance for them, right? لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو اللَّهَ وَالْيَوْمَ الْآخِرَ وَذَكَرَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. Truly, you have in the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ a beautiful example for those who are looking toward the day of judgment, who want God. يَرْجُو اللَّهَ. They want God. They're looking toward the day of judgment and they remember Allah abundantly. The Prophet ﷺ, he is a beautiful example for a person like that. Al-mafhum al-mukhalafa, if you're not that kind of person, if you don't want God, but perhaps you want something else, you're not looking toward the day of judgment, and you don't remember God abundantly, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he's not a guide for you. See, that's al-mafhum al-mukhalafa, right? So in this verse, when Allah Ta'ala says, if you give thanks, I will increase you in what you have. Al-mafhum al-mukhalafa, if you show ingratitude, two implicit understandings. Allah will decrease you in what you have, right? Which means you'll have more to be unthankful for. You see, you'll have more to be unthankful for.
And I think also just like understanding what it took for a person to arrive to where they're at, what you were saying, you just assume that a person had a easy route, but and I've heard you talk about this before, just understanding what it took for a person to get there. Like you don't want to go through their lows that they did to get to where they're at.
And sometimes this can just mean hard work. And sometimes this can mean spiritual depravity. You know, sometimes I think, you know, we look at certain communities and we think, oh man, they have so much money and they have wealth and they have generational this and that. But you have to say to yourself, if I had to exploit and enslave people and destroy people to get that, I don't want that. It's not worth that to me, right? I'm trying to do as best I can for my family. I'd like to leave something for my children, but at the cost of exploiting poor people and damaging indigenous communities and enslaving folks and dispossessing folks of their lands. And I don't want the money that bad. So sometimes I think when you see somebody with something you envy, you have to ask yourself, maybe the spiritual evil that they had to endure to achieve that worldly thing. Are you willing to do that? Is it that important to you? Right? I remember, you know, as a kid, this was something that one day it just occurred to me. You know, I saw a guy and he sold drugs, and you know, he had, at least to a child, you know, all of the, you know, accoutrements of you know, newly gained money, right? Jewelry and cars and you know, a retinue of people around him and status in the neighborhood. But somebody in my family I was very close to was addicted to drugs. And I said to myself, just looking at him, if I have to ruin people in the way that he did to get a Cadillac, to get some jewelry, to have a group of friends that are walking with me that appear like they're ready to kill for me, man, I'd rather be poor. I'd rather have nothing than do to somebody what happened to my father. Man, I'd rather have nothing. I'd rather be poor. So sometimes you have to really look at people you are comparing yourself with and think, man, do I want it that bad?
Right.
Do I want everything that goes with it? A lot of times the answer is no. Right? The answer is, a lot of times the answer should be no. SubhanAllah. He says, in other words, if you yourself were able, through some ruse, through some trick, to eliminate someone's blessing, you would utilize that trick to do so. So here, the Shaykh is giving us a mi'yar, like he's giving us a measuring stick. Like, because, you know, it's not unusual that we might see somebody and we may have like some feeling about them. Like, these are things that naturally occur to the heart.
Right.
Right? You just see something and it's like, not that you're doing it intentionally, just you feel something. He said, look, that's natural. If you want to know if you're envious or not, ask yourself this question. If you had the opportunity to do something to ruin this thing that they have with no risk to you, not going to go to jail, nobody's going to know, would you do it? Would you do it? If you would, you are truly an envious person. Meaning, if you could do, I'm totally dating myself, right? And I'm also outing myself as somebody that still watches like holiday movies and stuff like that. This is a movie that everybody shows during the holidays. How many of you have seen Trading Places? Dan Aykroyd, Eddie Murphy, right? Remember Dan Aykroyd, white shoe law firm. I think Winston is either a lawyer or an accountant. Or he's a broker, he's a trader. Works in finance and East Philadelphia, and he's a Brahmin, and and they decide to do the Duke brothers, right? They're having like an argument, and they're like, trading on the New York Stock Exchange, big timers, right? And they're saying, to be like Winston, it doesn't take individual talent, merit, ability. You just have to be put through, certain institutions. You have to have certain advantages, and you can very easily be like Winston, right? And they said, I bet we could take a common criminal, a crook, a bum on the street, give him all of the advantages of Winston, and he could do this.
Right.
And we would take Winston, put him in the circumstance of this bum, and he would be worse than one of these people on the street.
Yes.
Right. And they actually do this. And this is why the movie is called Trading Places. Right. And Eddie Murphy plays Billy Ray Valentine. Billy Ray Valentine. And Dan Aykroyd plays Winston. And the Duke brothers are somehow able to switch their fates. Now, in the end, I don't want to spoil it for you if you go watch the movie. Now, there's some bad parts of the movie too. I'm not endorsing the movie. But Dan Aykroyd was in blackface in the movie. Nowadays, you can't do stuff like that, right? But why did I mention that? Why did I mention? Oh yeah, they were able, through some ruse, they were able to take away Winston's. Now, the plot line wasn't jealousy. Right? But I'm just using that as an example of like, if you had the ability to do that to somebody, if you could do what they did to someone like Dan Aykroyd, would you? If, this person that, maybe you think of as conceited and full of themselves, if you could see to it that some accident happened that disfigured their face, would you do it?
Right. Man.
Right. If someone that, revels in their popularity, if you could create some kind of scandal to ruin them, would you do it? Right. That this is really the question. If you would, then you are in need of some redemption. You're in need of some cleansing. And that's why we're doing this. If you find in yourself like, if I could, I would do it. I would ruin the person, right? If I could, I would spread a vicious rumor about them and ruin their marriage. If I could. That's how strongly I feel about this. There's a problem there, man.
I think even the framework around, so I haven't read the whole, I don't know the framework of the whole book, but I feel like what I'm hearing is like removing the diseases, but in order to be whole and to have a sound, clean heart, I feel like if you understand, if you're locked in with, Creator, and you understand what Allah has given you and are secure with that and content and ready for whatever your path is in your trajectory, knowing that ultimately it's leading you to Him, like other people's things shouldn't get to you. It shouldn't interfere, whether it's somebody who's your friend and your neighbor, or if it's somebody who's famous and like totally, you don't have access to, because it's like knowing what you have is, you're just solid in what you have. You know what I'm saying?
For me, there's many Quranic references that drive home the point that you're talking about. But my favorite, the two neighbors in Surah Al-Kahf, right? One of them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave 2 gardens, and he had vineyards. He had Allah ta'ala describes the wealth of this man in 4 verses. He spends 4 verses of the Quran. These are the eternal words of God, just describing the gardens of this man. And so the man had vineyards, and the grapes were surrounded by date palm trees. And they say that in that there's an ishara, there's a latifa, there's a subtlety. Grapes were a cash crop. Grapes were sort of like, we might think about like oil, right? I mean, just the popularity of wine. I mean, grapes were a cash crop, right? But grapes are very delicate fruit. And even a strong wind can affect a crop of grapes. Right. So he had the trees surrounding, you see, meaning like they're protected. Right. The other thing you need is water. And Allah Ta'ala mentions that he had a rivulet, like he had a small river, so that he was able to irrigate his crop, meaning even if it doesn't rain, right, I can still get water to my fruit, right? And then Allah Ta'ala says that his crop would yield strongly every year. It wasn't like, sometimes it's up and sometimes it's down. Every year, right? And Allah Ta'ala said he entered the garden, oppressing himself, right? And he took a look at the garden, he said, Lan tabida abada. Man, this will never come to an end. And good times have a way of making you believe that they can't be followed by bad times. Like, man, this will never end. You begin to imagine yourself as being so favored by, not God in his case, but like fortuna, some kind of Machiavellian fortuna. Like, this is just happening to me. Right. It's like, it's like the basketball player that gets chosen one. And then he blows out his ACL the next game. He has a tattoo on his back that says chosen one. Right. Then he comes down and blows out his ACL. Now, I'm always interested in his spiritual constitution, because if it's strong, he can still see himself as a chosen one, chosen for that test. But often what he means is chosen for greatness. And then now he's out the league, depressed. He just got arrested for breaking in somebody's car. And the tattoo still says chosen one.
That's what they use to identify him.
The tattoo still says chosen one, right? So he was like one of those people looking at his garden, and I'm the chosen one. He got so full of himself that he said, I don't believe in the day of judgment. Like, I don't believe in that, right? He kind of said, like, look, kind of the Drake joint. I can't imagine heaven being much better than this. Right. The Drake joint. I can't imagine heaven being much better than this. What could be better than this? He said, I don't believe in any of that. But then he said, he said, even if I did die and there was some afterlife, what I would get would be even better than this. You know why? Because I'm the chosen one, right? Now, his friend, who Allah Ta'ala hadn't given anything like that, his friend advises him And the beautiful thing, the Mufassirun, the people of exegesis, they say is that his friend was able to give him sincere advice because there was no envy. See, his friend said, you know, are you really going to attribute a partner to God? And he meant like this material stuff. Like this has become your God, and God created you from a despicable fluid. Like how can you talk like this? And you were once a despicable drop of semen that God made into a man, and then God blessed with this wealth that you're exulting in. And then he said, as for me, I will never attribute any partner to God, right? But then he said, when you enter your garden, just say, MashaAllah, la quwwata illa billah. Just say, MashaAllah. Just say there's no power and no strength except God. The Mufassirun, the people of Tafsir, they say his being able to say this only because he's not jealous of him. He's cool. He's like, look, this money, this wealth, these gardens that you've been given. Oh, and he mentioned that he had sons, right? He had sons. This, and sons in the ancient world, that was everything. Like, not only am I producing, but I'm also reproducing, meaning I have sons that will add to my legacy, build on my legacy, and carry my name when I die. Right? These were people for whom honor was a big deal. So to have sons, that was like, and you have many sons, you know, mashallah. To have sons, that was like, I have one son, alhamdulillah. But my daughters, inshallah, will carry my honor in the same way that my sons will, inshallah. I mean, but, you know, in the ancient world, to have sons was like, you know, my legacy is protected, right? I mean, that was a part of their misunderstanding. You know, this is one of the reasons the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever has daughters, educates them, teaches them well, me and that person will be in heaven like this. You see, there's blessings in the girls that don't exist in the boys. And there's blessings in boys too, mashallah. But the Prophet ﷺ wanted to correct this misconception that like, oh, it's all about boys and male children. No. Girls, if you have girls. He didn't say that about sons. He said, no, whoever has daughters educates them, right? Rears them well, right? Doesn't just, put them to pasture. Okay, it's just girls, man. No, educates them, raises them well. Me and that person will be in Jannah. And he said he closed his fingers like that. Right? But this man had sons, and he thought that was a big deal. And his neighbor said, maybe you look at me and you think I'm insignificant because God hasn't given me money like that. And God hasn't given me children like that. Maybe God will send some kind of natural catastrophe that will destroy your gardens. And maybe God will give me something even better than your gardens. That's what you're talking about. That I'm on my path. And I don't know what it contains, but I'm hopeful that God will give me good. You are on your path and you don't know what it contains either, but you're sure that you're chosen. SubhanAllah. You don't know what will happen. Tomorrow is not promised to either of us. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and you don't either. So why are you so arrogant? And why would I be jealous? Why would I be jealous? I mean, sometimes I think about people that were maybe envied, who they had an apparent end that was horrible. Think about somebody looking at R. Kelly.
I mean, yes, okay. I was even gonna say, like, even Kobe, that was tragic,
Think about somebody looking at R. Kelly thinking, dang, man, I'm trying to think about like a fellow recording artist looking at him thinking, man, if only my career could. I mean, I wish R. Kelly, I wish, I can't stand, I wish, man, he would lose what he has. And I wish that was me. Do you think that now? Are
Mhm.
you, this is someone that might spend the rest of his life in jail and
Humility.
humiliated, and if he's not a sociopath, carrying the darkness and the guilt of what he did to people. Do you still want to be like him?
Mhm.
Do you still wish you had the #1 record and not him? If it came with all of that. So when he said to his neighbor, look, how do you know? Maybe God will give me something even better than your garden.
Mhm.
And maybe God will destroy your garden. That was, I think we read the Quran, but we don't realize that was immense spiritual wisdom. He's saying, look, this, I'm not jealous of you. And I'm not ungrateful for what I have.
Mhm. Mhm.
This is just where we are today. Alhamdulillah.
Mhm.
We don't know where this will end. The Prophet ﷺ, he used to say, al-umuru bi khawatimiha. Actions, affairs are only judged according to how they end.
Mhm.
It's all about it's all about the khawatim. It's all about the end, right? And everything that leads up to the end was just the precursor to the end. So if somebody had all of this and she had that and she had that and she had that and she ended like that, was that ever something to be jealous of? Was that ever something to want for yourself? I mean, you have to really, these are different ways of seeing the world, right? Imam Al-Mawlūd is talking about a different way of seeing and processing reality.
Mhm. And I love that. I feel like that's something that I'm taking away is the idea that you don't know where somebody else will go, their downfalls, but even if somebody just stayed up, like a righteous person that just, just kept winning until the end, inshallah, may that be all of us in this, in this room. But I'm saying like, I feel like it is very human and it can be a normal feeling to see somebody who's on the up and to have a feeling. But I guess what would you say to the person in that state where maybe they're not envious and maybe they're not, but like just those human feelings, like just to kind of temper that and then.
Well, that can be an immense source of good too. If you don't want them to lose what they have, but rather maybe take them as a role model.
Mhm.
Maybe you want to ask them like, what did you do? Because I think I want to try and do the same thing. You know what I'm saying? It's like, how did you, if you see someone, maybe they had a fitness goal and you had the same fitness goal, they were more successful than you. You ask, how did you, I had a New Year's resolution. Clearly it didn't, clearly I wasn't able to keep it. You appear to have had greater success. What did you do? There's nothing wrong with that, right? There's not, in fact, the Prophet ﷺ taught us that instead of giving someone bad energy, it's much better for you to give them good energy, right? That when you make dua for someone by name, the angels make an identical dua for you. And their dua is mustajab with Allah. Their dua is answered by God. So rather than seeing somebody and squinting your eyes at them and looking askance at them and wishing they lost what they had, it's better to say, may Allah give them all of the good in that. May Allah extend the blessing of that for them. And the angels are making the same dua for you. I remember, man, we would, this was like our hustle. We were at Azhar and man, those tests were so difficult, man. I was cleaning out my office and I grabbed one of my jurisprudence books, one of my usul books from Azhar. And one of my tests was folded up in the back of the one of the tests, not the answer sheet, but the questions. And I just read through 3 of the questions and said, how did I do this? Like if somebody said to me now, answer these questions, I said, I couldn't even, I was just thinking, but it was just like, man, I was so determined. I'm reading these questions in legal theory thinking, how did I even, and these are not like true or false.
Right.
Every question you were probably writing a 750-word answer for each question in Arabic, in classical Arabic, like longhand. I'm thinking, how did I do this, man? I just think like it was just blessing, right? Some of the questions I can't even understand them. I'm like, I know I answered this there.
Right. Wow.
But I don't even understand the question now. you know what I'm saying? But whenever we would get stuck on a question, we would start praying for all of our classmates by name. Oh Allah, make this question easy for Hamza, and make this question easy for Yasser, and make this question easy for Usama. Give them success on this exam, because I want the angels to make the same dua for me.
That's deep. Yeah.
I would pray for everybody in my car, I would start praying for everybody that I knew. I said, man, I hope he's not struggling with this question. Right? I hope he's acing this test. I hope this will be of our finals. I hope this exam will be the best exam for him. And wallahi, I know it sounds like, okay, you're right. I would feel like something would be lifted. Right? Something would be lifted, and something from the course reading would begin to jog, right? And then after that, it was just the creativity. Then it was just the creativity. So we're just going. So instead of giving somebody bad energy, give them good energy. The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, in the Sahih, he taught us a dua that we say if we see somebody wearing something that we like. He said, you should say, Tubli wa yukhlif Allahu ta'ala. May God allow you to wear that thing out. Like take full advantage of that thing. Wa yukhlif Allahu ta'ala. And then may God replace it with another one after you're finished with it. Like this is the way you completely remove anything that might be there from the evil eye. Like, no, there's not an evil eye, there's a good eye. Right? I want you to see me a good eye. If I see you shining, mashallah, alhamdulillah, look at my brother shining. Look at my sister shining. I'm proud of you. It's beautiful. Even if I'm in a difficult situation, man, the fact that Allah Ta'ala is showering people that I know with blessing, I'm standing close. Maybe some of the residual is going to hit me.
Right. Yes.
Maybe some of it is, maybe I'm next.
Right.
Maybe I'm next. Right? That's the energy you want to give people. You don't want to be the one picture person like in the wedding photo, like your friend is getting married. He probably ain't all that anyway. He's probably a creep. No. You want to be the person saying, okay, mashallah, I must be next. I'm next. I'm next, inshallah. I'm next. That's the energy you want to give people, because the evil eye is real. The Prophet ﷺ, and I've said this many times in this space, but I think, there's a profound point contained in this. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, "Al-ain haq." The evil eye is real, right? The evil eye is real. And one of my teachers, he said to me, you do realize that part of the Prophet's mission is to destroy baseless superstition. Like part of his mission is to destroy baseless superstition. Things that are baseless superstitions, the Prophet ﷺ must point them out as baseless superstition. Like, that's not real, man. Right? In the Arabs, they had many baseless superstitions. They believed that when it was a new moon, you had to go in your house from the back door, or it brought you bad luck. They thought that. Right? Allah says, "What وَدْخُلُ الْبُيُوتَ مِنْ أَبْوَابِهَا." Man, go in the house. That's not true. Right? That's not true. That's just a wives' tale. That's not true. I think some people forget that we're spiritual, but our spirituality is based on revelation. It's not just that any unsubstantiated spiritual thing we hear is like, oh man, that's deep. Like, if it's not based on revelation, I might be as skeptical as anybody. It's like, no, that sounds ridiculous to me. Now somebody says, no, the Prophet Muhammad said that. Okay, in that case, it's not ridiculous, right? Because one who is Sadiq and Masduq said that. Right? But if you just say something, oh yeah, there's like this thing that if you drink from this wishing well and then you run around it 7 times and then you throw your hat in the air and you grab it, Allah gives you whatever you want. I said, man, where did you hear that? Well, that's what people say. That's ridiculous. I don't believe that. Like, you better bring me some wahi. You better bring me some revelation. Right? Now, the Prophet ﷺ, whose mission it is to destroy baseless superstition, right? He said, the evil eye, this is not a superstition. This is true. A person can harm you just with their energy without saying a word. Nazar is real. Like when I say that, you're like, yo, you know what I'm saying? Nazar is real. But what I remind people, dua is just as real. Right? People say the evil eye is real. Dua is more real. So like, and that's one thing I can say about my Desi family. They do not play about nazar. You know, anything you say mashallah. You know, they just say mashallah. Right, just so that we're, you know, you talking about this happening. I mean, you know, the wedding ceremony was nice and the dress was beautiful. Say mashallah, right? Just to ensure there's no evil eye, there's no envy, man. Whatever it was, it is what Allah wanted it to be. Whatever it was, man, and just say mashallah. Tubli wa yukhif Allah ta'ala. So, as opposed to being a community of people envying each other, we should be a community of people praying for each other, right? And we should recognize that our gain is in our brothers and sisters' gain, right? Our gain is not in them losing anything. You know, one of my teachers when I was at Azhar, one semester we were studying zakat, the fara'id. That was a tough chapter. But the parts that I enjoyed, the mathematical parts, they weren't very difficult, you know, but I just don't enjoy math. You know what I'm saying? But the conceptual aspects I really, really enjoyed. And we were one day discussing what is the purpose of zakat? Right? And I said, Ighna'ul faqir, to enrich poor people. He said, yeah, but tafadul fil arzaq, the fact that there will be disparity in wealth. This is a sunnah min sunanillah. This is a sunnah fi khalqillah. Right? The world is not an equity paradise. There's no, we want to enrich impoverished people, but there might always be poor people. Even if everybody pays their zakat, there might always be poor people. He said, Bismillah, there's no problem. He said that in any society, there is always a kind of adawa, yani tabi'iyya, like a natural animosity between the haves and the have-nots of any society. He said, even when both parties are well-mannered, there's still something, that natural human thing that you're talking about is going to be there between rich people and poor people, people of means and people that lack those means. He said, something is there. And he said, the Prophet ﷺ said that zakat is to be taken from your wealthy and given to your poor. And this is why local zakat distribution is so important. Because you want to bring these two entities together. And he said the zakat is given according to kind of an amount that changes. So that the more you have, the more you give. He said, so you ultimately want people of less means to be praying for the increase of the people of means, because the more they get, the more they give us. Right? So if I come and I give somebody some zakat one year, and maybe his situation doesn't change, he's praying for me all year. maybe every night before he goes to bed, even though his situation might not be good, man, Allah give Ubayd, Allah increase. And then maybe the next year I give him even more. Things got better for me. And I give him even more. Until maybe now he's giving zakat. Right? So he said that it's good to use like these big organizations, but when somebody who is dealing with poverty sees a person who isn't, reach into their pocket and give them something. And they give it like they owe it to them, not like I'm doing you a big favor. They give it like, man, this is yours. This is yours. This is yours, right? This is yours. Take what's yours, right? And you don't even have to say thank you to me. God made this yours. You should say thank you to me. It's good adab, but you don't have to. He said that, man, this is invaluable in dealing with wealth disparity. That when that spirit is there, where it's kind of like, yeah, and he said that even then it's not going to go away. You can give zakat every year in this kind of natural tension between the haves and the have-nots. It will never go away. But giving charity, it lessens it. It makes it like, it makes it manageable. It's like, things aren't perfect, but I can live with it, right? We want greater equity. We want greater equality, but in the human, dunyawi, imperfect world that we live in, this makes it manageable. You know what I'm saying? But it's really a function of people trying to prevent envy. Like, I'm giving to you because I don't want you to envy me. I want you to pray for me. You know what I'm saying? I don't want you to envy me. I don't want you to see me driving down the street in my fancy car and wish that I crash. I want you to want me to stay alive so I can give more zakat next year. You know what I'm saying? I want you to pray for me. And I remember him saying to me, man, he said, man, this is very, very important. This is very, very important. One of the most beautiful, but probably impractical positions in fiqh, in zakat. And I believe this was the position of Awza'i. He said that the zakat on jewelry is just to let poor people borrow it. It's just to say, hey, man, you wear this for a while, right? Wear my paddock for a little bit, man. Go ahead, wear it. See it, you like it? It's like it's both of ours, man. You wear sometime, I wear sometime, right? So when he sees the other person with it, he's not like, that watch, I just wish I had it. Because you want to keep those feelings to a minimum, right? You want to keep those feelings to a minimum. I'll say this, and then we'll open for Q&A, inshallah. A major paradigm shift occurred for me, and there's a hadith in Tabarani where the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Sahibun ni'mati mahsood." He said, the one in possession of a blessing is envied. Again, like, it's natural. If you're in possession of a blessing, you will be envied. He said, be careful how you display the blessings that you've been given, right? You don't want to flaunt them. You don't want to hide them either. Allah loves to see the blessing that he's given, but you don't want to flaunt them in front of people who haven't been given those blessings. Right? You want to be, modest, right? This is the real, this is the true expression of modesty. That the things that I enjoy, I don't flaunt them, right? I display them, but modestly, right? Years ago, Shaykh Hamza, he said that if you go to like Fez, like Morocco,
Right.
a lot of the homes on the outside are very plain and nondescript looking.
Yeah.
Right. And it says, هذا من فضل الله, this is from the blessing of Allah, mashallah. He said, but if you enter the house, there's gardens and all of this zalij, tile work and marble and fountains and the interior of the home, right? The courtyard into the home itself, amazing, tuhfa, a masterpiece. right? But the outside is very plain. He said that is because they wanted to repel envy. They wanted to repel jealousy. And if you were someone that I trust enough to let into my home, I don't think you would envy me, because the blessing I have, I'm enjoying it with you.
Right.
Right? I mean, we're both sitting here together if you appreciate this beauty. You know what I'm saying? And I'll say this, that was from Shaykh Hamza. Now I'll quote my real Shaykh, my wife, alhamdulillah, Hadiyah. You know, when I first got back from Egypt, Sarah Orabi and Ahmed Azab, I rented their basement unit from them. They had a place on 52nd and Harbor in Hyde Park, and I didn't have any credit, right? I became Muslim at 15 or 16. I never established any credit. So my credit score was like 0. It was like, I have no credit. I didn't know that it was going to be difficult to get an apartment in Chicago with no credit. So I got married, I had a job, but I hadn't been working for any amount of time. And I was already married. And so my wife was in Chicago. We were living with my mother in a 1-bedroom apartment. And she said, what are we gonna do? I said, I'm gonna go out and get an apartment today, no problem. It's no problem. I have the money, it's no problem. Everywhere I went, they ran the credit check. Sorry, we can't give you an apartment. I'm like, you can't give me an apartment? What are you talking about? So now my wife is looking at me like, what are you gonna do now? I just started calling friends of mine. Like, man, you got any space, man? You think And they had space. They had a nice basement unit, they had a kitchenette, a bathroom. And so we started renting from them. Even then, it wasn't cheap. Ahmed Azab, if you see this, I love you. But it wasn't cheap, but it was Hyde Park. I mean, I didn't expect it to be cheap. And my wife would say, okay, we got a place, let's invite people over. And I would, my pride, right? I would say, man, no. Because you had to like go through his garage, and then you had to like go into the basement. I'm like, I'm not inviting anybody over here, man. I'm living in somebody else's basement, and you got to go through the garage, and and I'll never forget, she said to me, if you share what you have with people when you have very little, those people will not look at you with any envy if Allah gives you more.
Come on, Hadiyah.
You know what I'm saying? If you share what you have when you have very little, then if you invite somebody to the home, they'll know, he's not doing this to show off.
Wow.
He's always been a generous person. And I remember her saying, for a lot of middle-class people, hosting isn't about generosity, it's about showing what you got.
Wow.
That's what it's about. But if you're really generous, it's just, I want to share with the people that I love, whatever I have.
Right.
If I have a lot, I'll share it. If I have a little, I'll share it.
Wow.
Because I just want to share it with you.
Right.
This is what God gave me. I just want to share it. And after that, I said, you know what, babe, you're right. And we just started inviting people over, wherever we live.
Wow.
Yeah, man, come eat with us, man. Right now, we're in the bay, we're in this basement right now. You know what I'm saying? But inshallah, things will get better. Alhamdulillah. And now that we have a home, we still host.
Right.
We still invite people over.
Right.
But I'll never forget her saying that to me.
Profound.
You know what I'm saying? No matter what you have, share.
Right.
And then it'll be confirmed. If you have more, we're still sharing.
Right.
We ain't showing off. We just sharing, man.
Right.
We still sharing,
Wow.
And that's how you prevent jealousy, envy. MashaAllah, man. May Allah preserve her, man.
I mean, that's profound.
Wise.
Yeah.
Wise.
And the fact that she knew that that's what was within you, that was the hesitance on your end.
Exactly. She's like, let's invite people over. Come on, I'm living in somebody's basement. I don't want nobody. Come on, man. I'm obeyed, man. I got style, baby. I don't nobody see me. I'm living in people's basement, man. This not the right look. It's not the right time.
And meanwhile, we're looking at Sada and Ahmed like, dang, they so cool. They living with Ubayd and Hadiyah. That's how we're looking at it. Okay.
MashaAllah.
We're not looking at y'all.
MashaAllah. Alhamdulillah. Azza was a good man for letting me read. We stayed there for a whole year too. Good man. Man. Good family, mashallah. May Allah bless them. They're in North Carolina now. So we'll open, inshallah, for Q&A. Bismillah. One of the most beautiful things about that hadith, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. None of you believes completely until you want for your brother or sister what you want for yourself is that Imam Al-Nawawi said, this is not just about the Muslims. This is about all of humanity. That you would want good for everybody, like you want it for yourself. And if somebody has something of good, that should be what you want too, right? It's like this person is enjoying something good, mashallah, just what I would want them to be, right? Like I would want them to enjoy something good. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, this person has something nice, like I would want them to. So it's kind of like, in that sense, if somebody truly has something good, not something that just appears to be good, that should be like an answer to my prayer. If I see like a friend of mine and they have a happy relationship, that should be like, man, my prayers have been answered. If I see a friend of mine, they have a stable means of employment, right? Means of income, stable employment. It's like, man, my prayers have been answered. Because that's what I want for them. I don't want anything else for them. I don't want any harm to come to them. You know what I'm saying? So I think, mashallah, your question, kind of reveals just how perceptive you are. Because it's like, okay, you want for somebody what you want for yourself. What if they already have it? What if they already have what you want for yourself? It's like, well, I want them to have it and I want it for myself. You know what I'm saying?
So you mentioned that actions or affairs are only judged by how they end. How do you reconcile that with the hadith that actions are based on intentions?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Two separate issues. In terms of the merit, like the spiritual merit of an action, it's based on why it's being done, right? If something like that entire hadith, and this is like the first hadith in the Arba'in of Imam Al-Nawawi, it says is that if somebody made hijrah for Allah and his messenger, then their migration is for Allah and his messenger. But if somebody made hijrah to acquire a piece of land or to get married, right, then their hijrah was for that, even if they found something different. So like the asbab al-wurud, or the situation that led to the Prophet ﷺ mentioning this very famous hadith, was that there was a man who he wasn't very religious at first. Like he was Muslim and he really didn't want to make hijrah. Like he really didn't want to, I really don't want to do this. And after, the Muslims made hijrah and he stayed in Mecca. But then he met a woman from Medina and she was like, come to Medina and we can get married. And he said, hijrah don't sound that bad. And then, but he was still kind of holding to Mecca, I want to marry you. And then she said, I have land. If you come to Medina, we can get married and I will give you this land. You can farm on this land. You'll make money. Then he said, I'm booking my ticket on, Orbitz right now. I'm on my way. I'm on my way. So he gets to Medina. He enters the community. He begins to really fall in love with the Prophet ﷺ. He begins to feel like, man, I should have made hijrah for the sake of Allah. It shouldn't have taken me meeting this woman and then her promising me this land. And then he heard the Prophet ﷺ talking about the reward of the muhajirun. He was talking about the reward that Allah was going to give them. And he wondered, well, I kind of made hijrah, but my hijrah wasn't like theirs. They left with nothing and they left just for Allah. So he decided to ask the Prophet ﷺ, hey, is my hijrah rewarded like Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman and Ali? And do I get the same reward as them? And the Prophet, in his honesty and his integrity, he had to tell the man, no. It's not the same. Sorry. We're of course, it's great that you're here, but you didn't come like they came. And so the reward is not the same. And that's what that's the entire context of innama al-a'malu binniyat, the actions are but by intentions, right? The statement al-umur bi khawatimiha is more of a like an aphorism, like a wisdom, saying when you see something, know that you're not really in a position to judge it fully until you see how it ends. See, when you see something, you're not really able to say, was it good? Was it bad? Like, it's almost like you can't rate the movie, or you can't critique the movie in the middle or at the beginning. You have to wait and see how it ends. So if you see somebody ascending to great heights in their fame, or you see someone getting married, or you see something that, like, at the beginning, this looks good, but if at the end that thing ends up being destructive, then it was never really a good thing, right? You only thought so. You only looked because you couldn't see. They said that one of the biggest differences between man and God is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beyond time, right? Allah is not in space-time, right? So when we see, events, we can only see like this, whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees the entire thing. Sometimes that's a very, so like the statement that a lot of the Sufis, they say, Allah loved Omar when he was prostrating to idols in Mecca. Because Allah knows that this person that you see prostrating to these idols, that's Omar ibn al-Khattab. That's what he's going to be. But this is just what he is now. But that's how that story is going to end. Another part of that is be respectful to everyone, because you really don't know who you're talking to. So what about somebody looking at Omar, then thinking, man, idolater, man, not knowing, man, that was Omar ibn Khattab you were talking about, man. That was one of the greatest friends of God that you were talking about, but you couldn't see that. Allah, of course, Allah has written our death. Rufi al-qalam, the pen is lifted. You see, the pen, there's no, Allah's not waiting to see what's going to happen. Man, I wonder what's going, man, I wonder what Biden is going to do. I wonder what's going to happen with the Omicron. Allah's not waiting to see what's going to happen. There is no time for Allah. So al-umur bi khawatimi has like, don't judge something prematurely. Don't look at something and like judge it prematurely when you don't know how it's going to end, right? So we see somebody hit the lottery and everybody's like, oh, I wish that was me. And then the person, dies insane and hated by their family and alone. And that's what that statement means. Like, wow, I thought that was something good. Turned out not to be, right?
Can I piggyback off of that?
Camelback, Muslim.
Oh, my bad.
Now you can piggyback. I'm just kidding with you, bro.
Yeah, so like bringing those two concepts together, suppose someone is like is doing a action that's not allowed, but with good intention for it to like end in a good thing. Would that, like, how do you?
And are you talking about a Muslim or not necessarily?
Muslim.
Okay.
I'm specifically speaking about, like, nowadays a lot of people, they date with the intention of making it halal.
Yeah, I'm gonna make it halal. And then,
Right.
there's no quick answer to that question, right? Because on the one hand, nothing that we do is successful because we made it successful. It's just tawfiq. Like when I think about lying, for instance, even if I try to justify lying, saying I was lying for a good reason. You know, it was, you know, I was lying so that I could. The thing that challenges that for me is that when I thought it necessary to lie, I thought that my cleverness could secure for me something that the truth could not secure for me. Meaning, like, why do I think that, like, God is going to give me something in falsehood that he wouldn't give me in truth? Like, for a person of faith, that doesn't make any sense. It's like, so you thought that a better end would be secured through your clever lie than just through telling the truth. Why would you think that? Because momentarily, and this is just a human thing, you thought that you were in control.
Mhm.
So you thought, I know what I'm going to do. Yeah, I got it. This is how I'm going to solve the problem. But when a person tells the truth, they're relying on God. But I'm going to tell the truth, and you decide how you want this to end. Whatever you want, right? But at the same time, being strategic and using wisdom, that's also a part of the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, right? Using, I remember, and I'm not talking about dating. I don't want you to talk, I'm not talking about dating, but I was studying iftah, giving fatwas. The formal term is legal responsa, with Shaykh Amin Khalwadia, right? In Dar al-Qasim. I was studying iftah with him. I didn't finish the session, but I got a chance to sit with some of the scholars from Dar al-Qasim for a couple of months and just looking at fatwa and studying fatwa. It was awesome. And somehow we started talking about abrogation, naskh, right? Abrogation in the Quran, that something can be permissible at one time and then God can reveal later on that that thing that was permissible is impermissible, or vice versa, right? And the famous example that legal scholars use to talk about abrogation is alcohol. There was one time alcohol was permissible, and then it was don't come to prayer while you're intoxicated, and then it was, it's really an evil thing. You fajtanibu, leave it alone, and then finally it's haram, don't do it, right? And there's the sheikh, this Qatari sheikh, Shaykh Hamza, and he had a really novel opinion that maybe, this was his opinion, this is crazy. He said, maybe there's really no abrogation in the Quran. It's all about context. And that if we come to a place where something is relevant, then we just implement what's relevant. And I was like, this, because it was a weird opinion and I'm a young Western student, of course, it's a very attractive idea to me. I was like talking to Shaykh Amin, like, yo, what if there really is no abrogation? Like Shaykh Zalqar was saying, and Shaykh Amin in his typical British dry way was like, that's ridiculous. Of course there's abrogation. Of course there's abrogation in the Quran. I said, Shaykh Amin, let me tell you of an experience of mine. I said, once I was flying back from Egypt and I was flying Aer Lingus, the Irish airline. And we had a layover in Dublin and it was early. We got there like 5 a.m. And I saw a man that ordered breakfast all by himself and he was drinking a Guinness with his breakfast. He was like eggs, like some bread with a Guinness, right? Froth coming off the thing like a commercial or something like that. And I just looked at him and I said, if the Irish accepted Islam en masse, you may have to go through the stages. You might not be able to tell them right up front, alcohol is haram. It's just I'm like, he's by himself. It's 5 a.m. The Guinness is about this tall, man. And he was drinking it like a coffee. Yo, but I was sitting there looking, I was like, yo, he drinking that joint like a coffee, man. And it was dark, it looked like a coffee. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? And Shaykh Amin said to me, he said, no, he said, we don't have the authority to change something haram into something halal. It's haram. He said, but the person who is their murabbi, the person that is rearing them spiritually, he may choose out of a minhaj tarbawi or a minhaj nabawi. Like, I'm trying to raise this person. We're just not going to talk about alcohol right now. I'm not going to tell you it's halal, but in my wisdom of trying to help you get to a sustainable place as a Muslim, we're not even going to talk about alcohol. Let's just talk about prayer. Let's just talk about prayer and let's just focus on that. Now, if you ask me, is there something wrong with drinking alcohol? I might say, let's not talk about that. We'll get to that. Right now, let's just focus on our prayers. Let's focus on building this relationship with Allah. Now, is that a lie? Is that, no, Shaykh Amin said that's wisdom. That's just wisdom. So maybe a person in a situation like that might feel like, I'm not changing the religion, but like, yo, I'm trying to use some discretion. I'm trying to use some, what about somebody who like says like, man, I want to learn about Islam, but I work as a bartender or something like that. And the only time I would have, you have a couple books for me. Can you come in and just drop them off at the bar? Now technically, for a Muslim even to enter a place like that is haram, right? But you might say, in this case, yeah, it's haram, but I really want to get him these, but I'm just gonna go in, give him the books and leave, right? If you think that you can handle that, you may say, it was a khafad darain. It was the lesser of two evils. The other evil was him not getting these books. So I went in and did what I had to do. Things like that, to me, are an indication that we're living our deen spontaneously and living it authentically. Like, I know I'm spending a lot of time on this because I think about this a lot, but, Dr. Sherman Jackson, said to me, and I think about this almost every day. He said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, kana yu'allimuna, this is Ibn Abbas speaking, salat al-istikharati kama yu'allimuna suratan min al-Quran. That the Prophet alayhi wasallam used to teach us istikhara, like he would teach us a chapter of the Quran. And Dr. Jackson asked me, he said, what does that mean? Right? كان رسول الله عليه الصلاة والسلام يصلي صلاة الاستخارة للأمور كلها صغير وكبير. Right? That the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام used to pray istikhara for everything, small things and big things. He said, what does that mean? And I'm like, what? That even the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that followed the guidance perfectly, was often in situations where he's like, Allah, I need you to guide me. Should I go left? Should I go right? If you are not finding yourself in those positions, then you're not really living as a Muslim. You're just trying to make your life into some book, make your life into some traditional text. But if you're really living as a Muslim, you will often be in situations where you have to ask Allah, I don't know what to do. Should I go left? Should I go right? In those moments, you pray istikhara, istafti qalbak, you listen to your heart, you engage. If you learn that you've made a mistake, you make tawbah. That's it. Because if you're not really living like that, are you really living? This is the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. If anybody had all the answers, I know what to do all the time, it would have been him. For him, the guidance, this is clear. I know this, you do this and you don't do that. It's always clear for me. No, sometimes there's competing priorities. There's, once you have children, you know what I'm talking about. It's like, my daughter wants to go to homecoming. It's gonna be music there, it's gonna be mixing and all that, but at the same time, I don't want her to feel like Islam is just like a prison. And oh, I'm gonna pray istikhara. I don't, yeah, I mean, that means that you're really trying. That means, to me, that means your Islam is authentic. Anybody that has all the answers, yeah, it's like that worshiping God can't be that easy, man. Like, it can't be like, it's got to be like, ooh, I want her to love her deen. I want her to know that I trust her. I do recognize that, whatever she sees, there's going to be amplified in college when I'm not there. So is it better for me to just let her have this little social experiment, and then next time say, okay, you went, you saw it, we're going to kind of like move away from that? Or should I just shut it down from the very beginning? I don't think you should be in places like that. I'm going to pray istikhara. I don't know what I should do. Right? I don't know what I should do. Right? That means that it's real. That's when it's real. So, I guess what I'm saying, not speaking directly to the issue of dating, but like I do empathize with people that are in those challenging positions, trying to figure out which way they should go. But going back to my original point, if you go the way of good, if you go the way of righteousness, just rely on Allah and let him work that out for you. Just rely on Allah, right? No one is regretful of having relied on Allah and done the right thing. Nobody regrets that. I've never talked to anybody that say, man, I told the truth and I did what was right and I relied on Allah. I should have lied, man. I should have just, if only I had been deceitful and lied and done something false, this would have worked out a lot better. I don't hear people say that, right? So I'm sure that's not really an answer, but it's complex, man. It's complex. Jazakallah khair.
Right, I know we have to wrap up, but we did have one question online that I wanted to get to. What if you're someone who seems to be on the receiving end of a lot of jealousy? Like seemingly you have a lot, but you actually really struggle. And even when you tell people and don't brag, it just happens. Is there anything you can do? Is this one of the tests for you from Allah?
Yeah,
I was thinking about that too when you were talking about the zakat thing, about how you were saying that it felt like it was focusing on like the kind of person who had lesser means, kind of praying for the person who has higher or more means so that they can give more. So I resonate with that question, because it's like, what about the person who's in the position of like a higher position that just like, why is it in their self-interest for the person who has lesser means? You know what I'm saying? Like I was just trying to understand on the flip side from that person's perspective,
Well, the thing about blessing is that it never works. Trying to explain to someone that something they think is a blessing it really isn't, you're never going to convince them anyway, right? So if somebody comes to me and they say, man, you were able to study, you're fluent in Arabic, and I say, akhi wallahi, man, the terror that I wake up with every morning, that I'm not acting according to my knowledge, that I've, the night before I did a class, I'm thinking, what did I say that was wrong that made somebody maybe second guess Islam? Right. How many people that maybe they left my class and they thought, nah, Islam is not for me. What, like, if me trying to convince somebody that, bro, this is really how I wake up every morning, bro. But he is just like this young student that wants to go overseas and didn't get the chance to, that's looking at me like, oh man, that's so great that you got to do that and I didn't. I'm never going to be able to convince him that it's really a test. It's really a challenge. It's really, and I think that it almost might read as ingratitude if I try to convince him. if I try to convince them that it's really not all you think, man, right? I don't think that reads as humility. I think it reads as like, it's like, imagine somebody poor telling somebody rich. I mean, the fact that you can support your children and you can take care of your mother. And he's like, it's really not all you think it is, man. I wake up every day wondering if I'm really doing what Allah wants me to do, man, and this person is poor. There's an inauthenticity in that. Larry King, old Larry King that passed away. Larry King said, the only people I've ever heard say money isn't everything is people that have it. You're gonna really sit up and try to convince somebody poor, money is just money, bro. You just don't think about it like that. If it's just money, give it to me.
Right.
That's what I'm thinking. If it's just money, well, take yours and give it to me. If it's just money, no, there's something patronizing about that. Oh, it ain't all you think it is. No, it's better. It's more authentic and it's truly humble. Just say Allah. Just say, man, it's from Allah. I thank him and I try my best to do what I'm supposed to do. That feels a lot more authentic. I'm not gonna try to convince you it's not a blessing. Like, it's not a blessing to know Arabic. It's not a blessing to have lived overseas for almost 7 years. It's not a blessing to it's not a blessing to be able to travel to different places in the country and be respected and be esteemed. And it's really not, no, that's astaghfirullah. No, it is a blessing, but I didn't give it to myself. I didn't do it myself. And I do recognize that it's a test, but it is a blessing, man. And just, I think sometimes greater humility is shown in asking the person to pray for you. Like, man, just pray for me. I think just that statement, just pray for me, man. Just pray for me. That you're saying everything that you want to say, like, I don't have it all together. It is a struggle. I don't know that I'm doing this right. Make dua for me, man. I need you. Actually telling the person, look, I need you to pray for me. That's what I need. You may think, I got everything. Alhamdulillah for what I have. Alhamdulillah for what I know. Alhamdulillah for what I'm doing. Whatever you think of me, may Allah make me better than that. Right? But just pray for me. Sayyidina Abu Bakr, if anybody in this ummah should have been envied, it was him. He had what we all should want. The Prophet ﷺ said, Abu Bakr, ليس بأعلمكم أو أقرأكم ولكنه شيء في صدري. That Abu Bakr is not the most knowledgeable of you. And he's not the most well-read in the Quran. But it's something in his heart. Something in his chest. That's what makes him him. And that if the iman of Abu Bakr was put on one side of the scale and the iman of everybody else together in the ummah was put on the other side, his faith would outweigh everybody's. This is saying Abu Bakr, right? And people would come to him and they would compliment him all the time, right? And once somebody asked him, Abu Bakr, what did you do, man? What was it that you did that made you you? And he said, I don't know. He said, but if I were to narrow it down to 2 things, whenever there was a situation in life where there was no choice, it was an ultimatum. Not all situations are like that, but sometimes it's something is going to benefit me in the dunya, but harm me in the akhirah, or benefit me in the akhirah, harm me in the dunya. I always chose that which would benefit me in the akhirah, and I accepted the harm that I would incur in the dunya. I always did that. And he said the second thing, whenever somebody would come to me complimenting me, like you're coming to me complimenting me now, I would say to myself, oh Allah, make me better than they think I am. I know myself better than they know me. And you know me better than I know myself. And he said, that's it. Right? So it was really his humility. It was his humility. That he never thought of himself as like, I got it all together. But he also didn't spend hours trying to convince people. It's like, you're Abu Bakr. Man, I'm telling you, I'm really not bad. I'm really not what you think I am. You know, he didn't, you know, he didn't
Right.
spin.
Yeah, either.
I'm telling you that, you know, all this self-deprecation.
Right.
I didn't even pray Fajr on time this morning. I'm telling you, no, he didn't do it. He didn't do it
Right.
because that wouldn't have been true. He just said, may Allah make me better than you think I am.
Mhm.
Right? And sometimes that's all we can do. That's
Mhm.
all we can do.
Mhm.
Alhamdulillah. Good place to end. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. آمين يا رب العالمين.
يا رب العالمين.
الحمد لله.